Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first, the first full week almost the first full week of the Dream for All registration process being open. Super excited to be connecting with all of you and providing up-to-the-minute updates. So this is going to be chock full of information as we have people who are going to be joining us live, asking questions, and also providing a lot of information about what's happening with Dream for All. I'm going to start with a quick update. In case you haven't heard, what the heck is Dream for All? It is for California residents. At least one person has to be a California resident, and you can purchase a home and get up to 20% of the purchase price, or up to $750,000, no more than $150,000, towards the down payment on a home. And you're basically sharing future appreciation with the state of California. So if you don't know what the program is, it is essentially helping you to come up with that down payment, pay for the closing costs, and you have a partner. Your partner is the state. As the house value goes up, you get 80% of the increase in house value. Your partner, the state of California, gets 20% of the increase in the house value. So it's a really, really good program for first-time home buyers and first-generation home buyers. It's been very, very confusing, especially in the registration portal. The attorneys wrote this, and they put the language in there on whether you're a first-generation home buyer or not, and it was super confusing. And so a lot of people are misunderstanding that. And so I'm going to update you on what's going on in the portal, what I've heard, some tips and some tricks. And then I'm going to talk to you about how to calculate how much money you owe back to CalHFA, because a lot of people are confused about, hey, what's the appreciation look like? What do I need to do in order to minimize how much money I'm paying the state? And so I'm going to cover a lot of that tonight as well. So if you're watching live, post questions at any point. If you're watching recorded, then post those questions after the fact, and I'll go back and I'll answer those questions as I see them come up and have the time to answer those questions for you. So first of all, 3 weeks left. 3 weeks from tonight is the closing of the portal. So if you have not gotten started, it is time for you to get started to see if this is going to work for you. One of the questions I've gotten in the last 24 hours, I've had 3 people ask me, John, is it too late to get started? Is it too late for me to start the pre-approval process? Because I know that I have to have a pre-approval before I can register in the portal. I've actually had a couple people who have registered in the portal, gotten all the way to being done, and then said, now, John, do I have to get a pre-approval? And the answer is 100% yes. Now, a lot of people have been confused about where to get their mortgage separate from the Dream for All money. And I want to clarify, it's not separate money. Okay, you are getting one loan, you're getting 2 loans, but you're getting them as a package deal. So you have to get your big loan from CalHFA and in order to get the down payment assistance loan from CalHFA. So I wanted to point that out. One of the things that I want to talk about tonight is the registration process. So there's been a lot of confusion going through the registration process. And so CalHFA provided some updates they sent out an e-news, as a matter of fact, the other day, and they talked about a lot of these issues. And they talked about some of the things that were going on. They shared it with the preferred loan officers. There's been a lot of confusion surrounding information in the portal. And so CalHFA has said, hey, some people answered the first generation homebuyer question wrong. And so if you've already registered in the portal, you're worried about, hey, did I answer it correctly or not? And they kind of said 2 things. The first thing CalHFA said is, we understand the wording wasn't clear, that ultimately you're supposed to answer, yes, I am a first generation homebuyer. But the way the question was worded, it really was poorly written. As a matter of fact, I'm going to pull up right here. Let me share with you what I made a copy of the portal process. Let me get in here really quickly, and I'll show you what the wording was, because a lot of people were confused by this. And so give me 1 second here as I pull this up, and then I will share it with all of you so that you can see, because if you answered this question wrong, you need to go back and change it. So let's go through here very, very quickly. Maybe I didn't get that one correctly. Hold on, page up. Okay. So I didn't get the full picture of it, but it is this screen right here. And right here on the bottom, it says, I certify that at least one borrower was a first generation home buyer. But the way that the wording, when you put your finger over the cursor here, it was worded in such a way that it made it very confusing As a matter of fact, I think it talks about it. Hold on one second here. So I want to help you guys understand where the challenge came from. It's one of these here. All right. At least one borrower must be a first-generation home buyer. The way that they worded this created a lot of challenges for people. And so if you are unsure if you did this right or wrong, CalHFA said two things. They said, first and foremost, that the people who answered, no, I'm not a first-generation home buyer, they're going to email you to confirm and give you the option to make a change. But they said it may take until after the portal has closed in order for them to catch all of these and email you. And people started freaking out and saying, wait a second, John, what if I answered it wrong and they don't email me and then I don't get my voucher in there? And so then CalHFA came back and said, you know what? We're going to let you delete your registration. So if you have any doubt in your mind that you answered the question incorrectly, you can delete your registration and start over. So I want to show you what CalHFA has sent out now. It's their most recent e-news. They sent at the end of last week. And the first thing they said in their e-news to commonly asked questions, zoom in here, is they said, question number 1, can the applicant withdraw their application and start over? And the answer is yes. You will not be disqualified and you will not be negatively impacted if you withdraw your application and make a new one. You can only have one active application at a time per household. So if you're not sure, if you're like, gosh, I'm not sure if you've already filled it in, especially in the first couple of days, they fixed this on Friday. So if you completed your registration on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, and you're unsure if you selected correctly to say, yes, at least one of us is a first-generation home buyer, you have the ability to delete your registration and start over. So it's something to consider. Is it necessary? No. But if I was you and I had any doubts about how I answered that question, I would delete it and start over. All right, so a lot of people have asked, can a loan officer or a real estate agent complete the application process for us? The answer is no. We can help talk you through it. If you have questions, especially if you're one of my clients, if you have questions, I will absolutely jump on a Zoom call with you and help you to figure out how to answer those questions properly. I want to help you be able to get it in there as smoothly as you can, but we cannot do the process for you. So be aware of that. If you have tech support issues, only tech support. They won't answer questions about loans. But if you have tech support questions, you can dial 877-9-CAL-HFA and press number 1 for Dream for All and number 1 for technical support. I've talked a lot in the past about the Dream for All interest rate, so I'm not going to go over that again tonight, but it is posted on their portal. And everybody's been asking when are the vouchers going to be issued? And they said they're looking at late spring is kind of what they've said. They know everybody's anxious. They're going to work them as quickly as they can. I've been saying I think it's going to be 3 to 6 weeks, and I really do believe that it's going to be probably 3 to 6 weeks before they're going to actually get the vouchers issued. All right. They did say that 92% of the applicants said the app was easy to complete. So that part is good news as well. All right. So now what I want to talk about is really the meat of what I want to cover with you today. By the way, I'm here to answer questions. So if you have questions about anything, if you're not sure about how the program works, or if you just want to give me some feedback on your experience being in the portal, please issue or put comments on whatever platform that you're on, and I'll be able to pull those up and see them on my screen. What I want to talk about is really a calculation of how to figure out how much money you're going to pay back to the state. And so I created a spreadsheet that would allow me, as I'm working with you, to kind of go through these numbers with you. And let me kind of show you an idea of what this spreadsheet looks like. Let's make this a lot bigger, and let's get rid of, actually, no, that's going to work perfect. Okay, so basically, if you bought a $750,000 home and you got 20% from the state, but you wanted to cover your own closing costs, so you're going to be borrowing 80% of the purchase price. Okay, so in this case, they're giving you $150,000 in assistance. You're borrowing 80% of the purchase price. And you say, hey, John, I want to kind of get a feel for what am I going to owe at some point down the road. And so I built this calculator that says, hey, let's guess at how much the house is going to appreciate every year. In California, house appreciation has gone up on average about 4.5% to 5% per year on average. So it's been 3 to 6% is kind of the range, but on average, it's been 4.5 to 5%. I'm only assuming 3%, and I'll show you how these numbers pan out. So if you said, I'm going to pay this off in the 5th year. So what we have to figure out is we have to figure out, first of all, here's your monthly payment. So my little calculator here, it shows you the monthly payment. But it says here, hey, the maximum you'll ever pay back CalHFA is 2.5 times the amount of money that you got in assistance. Now you pay back the original amount and 2.5 times. That means the most you'll ever pay back to them is $525,000. You're like, John, that's crazy. Why in the world would I ever pay back the state that much money? Why? And here's an example here. If you're 5 years in, by the way, I have a chart on the other screen on another tab that's going to show you every single year to break it down for you. If you are at a 3% appreciation per year, in 5 years, the $750,000 home has gone up to $869,000. That's a $119,000 increase in the value of the home. So you owe the state $24,000 on top of, or $23,000 on top of the $150,000 that you took. So you owe the state $173,000. You're like, John, that's horrible. I only made $119,000 and I'm paying the state $173,000. I quit. I'm not doing it. This is a horrible program. You sold me a bag of beans, Jack and the Beanstalk reference for those of you who are old enough. Okay. And you say it's not a good idea. But what you're missing is that you picked up a lot of the equity and your balance in your mortgage was a lot lower. So I'm going to show you here. So let's zoom in a little bit on this one. I'm going to get rid of this QR code on the top. Oops, let's not do that. Let's do that. Oh, are you going to do this to me? Hold on. I clicked the wrong button. There we go. All right, let's get rid of this banner down here on the bottom. Actually, I can leave that there. That's fine. All right. So what this is saying is it's saying, hey, when my house each year, your value started at $750,000. By year 5, the value at the start of year 5 is $844,000. And what I'm breaking down for you here is not just how much money you owe to the state, but most importantly, this column right down here on the end, which is the amount of money that's left for you. You have to understand how this math works, and hopefully this spreadsheet will help you to figure this out, okay? And I'm going to walk through it slowly to help you understand and help you see how this works, okay? So if the first year, the house started out at $750,000, remember I said I've got an estimate of the house value going up 3% per year. So $750,000, 3% of that is $22,500, which means the house value ends at $772,000. So the Dream for All program, if you paid it off in 1 year, would get $4,500 plus the original $150,000. But remember, when you bought the house, you only borrowed $600,000. So if you borrowed $600,000 and your balance went down every time you make a payment, you're lowering your balance. So your mortgage balance is declining. At the end of the first year, even though you've only made $22,500, okay. So at the end of the first year, you say, I've only made $22,500 in appreciation, but you've paid down your balance by an extra $7,000. So even after paying back to the state, you still have equity left over for you. That's the key, but it becomes better years down the road. So if we go to year number 5 and we look at this and we say, okay, so in year number 5, the house value went up $22,000, $23,000 the next year, $24,000 and $25,000, but it's added up. So by the end of year 5, your value is increased by $119,000. The house is worth $869,000, which is the same numbers we're seeing right over here. But the thing that everybody misunderstands is the fact that you've got their balance has been dropping every single month. So it started at $600,000. Your balance is at $561,000. You've picked up $39,000 of balance pay down. And the state, that $119,000 that the equity went, the appreciation of the home, the state only got $24,000 of that. Now, they're going to get their $150,000 that they got originally. But remember, you bought the house for $750,000 and you started out owing $600,000. So that $150,000 that the state is getting back is money that you never had to make payments on. You're still going to walk away in year number 5 with $134,000 because the value has gone up and 80% of that increase went to you. Where else? Think about where you started renting 5 years ago. And had you been able to do this program 5 years ago, it wasn't out there. And you kept making your monthly payment for 5 years and then you sold it. And you walk away with $133,000. Okay, that is a huge opportunity. And by the way, I'm pretty sure my numbers are correct. I've triple checked them, but I got to quadruple check them. And let me just talk through this really quick. If the house value went up $119,000, the state gets $23,000 of that, so that's correct. So I pay them back $173,000. My balance is $561,000. So if I'm selling the house for $869,000, I'm going to do this math right here. So if I'm selling the house for equals $869,455, and from that I have to pay back the state $173,891, and I have to pay back my mortgage company $561,665. That leaves for me $133,899. So my math is correct. I just need to double check. So this number is simply what you owed, what your house was worth at the end of the year, minus the amount you owe for Dream for All, minus the amount you owe on your mortgage. Now, the one thing you do have to pay is you have to pay the closing costs to sell your home. You have to pay the fees that it takes to sell your home. Now, there's a lot of hubbub going on right now with real estate and who pays the fees, and is the seller going to pay the fees or is the buyer going to pay the fees? But you can expect to pay anywhere from 3 to 6% of your sales price in fees. And so if we're paying 3 to 6%, I'm just going to call it 4%. So equals your value times 4%. So you're paying $34,000 in fees to sell your home. It's just a ballpark number, okay? So you're now walking away with, after paying the fees for selling your home, you're walking away still with $100,000 in your pocket. That's the multiplying power of home ownership. That's the key. And the longer you wait, I'm going to extrapolate this number down here, and I'm going to extrapolate this number down here so that you're still seeing what your net is after paying for the cost of selling the home. Okay, so this is going to be cost of sale, and this is going to be net to you. I'm going to call this a 4% cost of sale. Okay, so this means that you're still walking away with literally in the year number, what year is this? Year number 19. You keep this house for 19 years and you never refinance. You never pay back the state their money. The state is going to get $263,000. And you're going to say, this is a horrible idea because the state is getting $263,000 of my money. But you have $695,000 left over. And even if it costs you $52,000 to sell that home, you're walking away with $642,000. Where are you in the next 19 years from now? Name me one thing that you can do over the next 19 years that is going to give you $642,000. Think about where you were 19 years ago. Now, those of you who are under 30, 19 years ago, you were super young. Doesn't count. Okay. But if you're in your mid 40s or your 50s and you never bought a home and you're thinking, you know what, maybe this is a bad idea. I shouldn't do this because I'm sharing so much equity with the state. Or even if you are in your 20s and your 30s and you say, you know what, I wish not to be one of those people that looks back and says, I missed out on an opportunity. I missed out on an opportunity to, how should I say it? So I missed out on an opportunity to change my future and the future of my children's children's children. And that is where this is coming from, is you having the ability to change your future. Because so what if I'm paying the state some money? Here's the deal. I only said that values went up by 3%. Let's pretend that values went up by 5% on average. Okay, that's a little bit more than the higher end of what the values went up. But look at this now. You've got $1 million in 19 years. $1 million. Let's spread this out over the entire period of time. By the way, here's where you end up not making very much money after the end of the first year. Okay, because if at the end of the first year you have not, let's go down here. All right, so at the end of the first year, let's make that smaller. Perfect. Okay. You sell the house in 1 year, you've only walked away with $5,000, but you didn't lose money. Now, this is if the house went up by 5% in the next year. Okay. But if you were in a position where you had to sell a year from now and the house price didn't go up very much, as a matter of fact, let's say it only went up by 1%. Here's where you're going to lose money. If the house price only goes up by 1%, after paying the cost of selling the home, Even though you had about 12 grand left, you had to pay the cost of selling a home, which means you lost about $17,500. Okay. You paid back the state a little bit of money. Let's pretend the house price never went up. Let's pretend the house price stayed flat forever. Look at this. You are only ever paying back the $150,000 to the state, and you are still making a bunch of money because you paid down the balance every single month. And this is not even counting the fact that you're getting a tax write-off for the interest that you're paying that you don't get when you're a renter. Now, somebody's going to say, John, what if housing prices crash? First of all, if they crash, they go back up right after they crash. Okay. I'm not saying immediately after, but let's take a look at this because I haven't done this on this call before. I'm going to show you guys the history of house prices. So we're going to go to the St. Louis Fed. That is the Federal Reserve Board of St. Louis. And we're going to go to median home price. Okay. This is a wonderful tool that breaks down lots of different economic factors, and it makes it easy to see a chart. So let's go here and let's take a look at this chart. This is from the federal government. So it is not my numbers, it's theirs. And it's loading and it's loading. Okay. So what we're looking at right here is we're looking at house prices going back to 1965. Okay. I'm going to make this bigger. Beautiful. All right. So we see house prices and they go up and then they drop down a little bit. Now this drop doesn't look very big, but this drop was actually huge when you were looking at just the scope of this timeline. Like if I go way back here and I were to show you just through that era, that drop was huge. Like it was a huge drop because you don't have the scale of how much housing prices went up. And so everybody goes, oh my gosh, house prices heading into 1970. In 1969, they were at $26,000 and they dropped all the way to $22,000. That is literally, what are we talking about here? $4,000. That's a 20% drop in prices. 20% drop in prices. Okay. But then they immediately started going back up. And in a year later, they went back up to 20%. And then they kept going up and up and up. And so as housing prices drop, as we look in the future, and I'm going to fast forward here to the 80s, and we're going to see, oh my gosh, we had housing prices drop. And they went from $70,000 down to $66,000. Okay, that's about a 5% drop in house prices. And then they turned around and bounced back up. And every time you see a drop here in 1990, they went from 126,000 down to 117,000. That's about an 8% drop in house prices right there. But what happened after that? If I just open this up a little bit longer, we see they stayed kind of steady in the early 90s. They dropped and they didn't really go up. And then they kind of stabilized and now they started taking off again. And if we scooch forward, what do we see? We see they keep going up. So a price drop does not happen forever. Even the worst time, which was in the 2000s. So let's go here. This was the biggest price drop. Oh my gosh, prices dropped. First of all, they went way up. So 2001 average price is $171,000. They shoot up, they keep shooting up, they keep shooting up, and everybody says this is unsustainable. 2007, house prices are unsustainable. They're crashing, and they did. They went from $257,000 all the way down to $208,000. That was a 20% drop in house prices in 2 years. But then they turned around. And by the time we were in 2013, the numbers were back to where they were in 2007. And then they kept going up. And we see prices from the 2013 era, 2012, all the way up and up and up. And then they flattened out a little bit in 2018. And then we know what happened in 2020, right? They peaked. Like this looks like a huge bump. Everybody says from 2012 to 2020, this is unsustainable. These prices can never be sustained. Look at how much those prices went up. 2020, it has to crash. What happened after that? It skyrocketed. From 2020, it took off again. And everybody says, see, John, here we go again. It has to crash. It's crashing. No, it's not. Okay. House prices ebb and flow. And when they fall, they might stay flat for a little bit and then they take off again. And that's what we've seen historically, even in the Great Recession, that housing prices ebb and housing prices flow. So now let's go back to that spreadsheet. And let's pretend that you are losing money. And let's say that the house price drops by 2%. Okay. So now let's go over here and say, well, how horrible does this look? Yeah, right. Right now you're losing a lot of money. Now you still pay back the states. I got to fix my numbers here because this cannot be. I didn't. Okay, this is not right because this is a minimum of, hold on here, equals that or any of those. Nope. All right, I got to fix that. Anyway, oh, I know why I did it wrong there. Let's delete that and that. And that still isn't right. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, this should be $150,000. This should never drop because you always owe the state what you borrowed from them. So I got to fix my calculator here to figure out why this is wrong. But the point is, yes, if housing prices drop, you're in trouble. If housing prices drop by 2% over the next couple of years, and if they drop by 10%, you're in trouble. But they're going to bounce back up. And that's where the historical averages come into play. But the truth is, even if housing prices drop, the fact is that in 30 years, you still owe nothing on the mortgage. You've still paid it off completely, and they never drop the entire time. Now, I'm going to show you one more thing here that the spreadsheet really helps you to understand, and that is the value of putting a little extra money towards your monthly payments. So the Dream for All program says you can only pay so much in your own money up front. But if you can afford to stretch a little bit of extra money towards your monthly payment, I'm going to show you what happens. I put the appreciation back to 3% appreciation. And so we're going to see the numbers over here, and it's going to show correctly. But now what you're going to look at is I'm going to say, what if you put an extra $500 a month into your payment? If you put an extra $500 a month into your payment, your house is paid off in 22 years. Okay. You have significantly increased your equity, and you're making no payment for the remainder of that time for just an extra $500 a month. If you add $100 a month, you're still paying off your house significantly faster. You're paying off your house. This is a $750,000 home, and you're paying off this house in 28 years. So if you can add a little bit of extra money every single month, it helps you out significantly. But let's pretend that you added nothing extra. Okay. In the end, you still have the same amount of money because the house is still worth the same amount as what it would be if you paid it off fast. So paying off your home faster helps you with one thing. And I want to make this a little bit, actually I'll leave it right here. Okay. People say, I want to pay off my home as fast as I can. That helps you in retirement, but that's it. The truth is, paying down your home faster does not make your home worth more money. So that money you use to pay down your home, it helped you in one way, which is that it lowered your monthly payment, which makes it easier to afford to retire. So if you are in the last 10 years before retirement and you have the ability to put extra money towards paying down your mortgage, pay it down as quickly as you possibly can so you can retire without a mortgage. That's great. But if you're simply saying, I think it's a better financial move to pay down the value of the balance on my mortgage, it's not. Your better financial move is to take that money and invest it somewhere because your house is going to appreciate the same amount no matter what. So take that extra money that you have and put it into an investment that will also grow separately. I know it's an advanced concept. You guys are super smart, but if you have questions about it, feel free to set up a time to sit down with me and I'd be happy to talk to you about it. It makes way more sense to do it that way. So why am I going so deep into this? Let me make this bigger here because I want you to understand that the house price is in your benefit. When the house price goes up, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want it to go up because I'm going to owe more money to the state. Who cares? Let's pretend house prices went up by 10% per year for the next 30 years. Okay. You're in a position right here where you maxed out in year number 14. You don't owe the state any more money after that because you won't never have to pay them more than what you borrowed plus 2.5 times what the loan amount was. So 3.5 times the total amount you borrowed. You never have to pay more than that. So now you've got a home that is literally worth, the equity left for you is $12 million if it went up by 10% every single year. This is not realistic either, but I'm trying to show you how the compound effect of home ownership works. And the fact that the state is sharing in 20% of your appreciation is no big deal. Okay. This calculator allows me to walk through with you how to run your numbers. And so if you want to work with me to help get your pre-approval and help you to kind of figure out what your options are for all of my clients who are pre-approved with me, what's going to happen is when you get your voucher, we're going to sit down and we're going to have a consultation. We're going to talk through these numbers with you. We're going to make a decision on price point. We're going to make a decision on how much money you're going to get. And then we're going to submit your loan to underwriting so that we have a fully approved loan that makes it a better offer, because you have to make a strong offer to the seller. You're going to be in competition with thousands of other people who are searching for homes at the exact same time. But you have one thing against you. You have a limited time to use that money. We talked about it last week that you have 90 days to use the money, and CalHFA has said that they offer the option to extend it for another 90 days. I don't know what criteria they're going to use, but they offer the option to extend it for another 90 days. And so what you need to know is strategy. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about is a strategy session. We're going to go through this stuff. We're going to strategize on how do we maximize your purchase price? Where are interest rates at the time? And where's your budget so that we can make sure that we hone you in on finding the right home at the right price at the right time, okay? And we've got to have steps to make our offer look stronger, because I believe we're going to have a pretty hot summer buying season. How hot is going to depend on where interest rates go. The lower interest rates go, the more competition you're going to have of people wanting to buy that home that you're thinking of buying. The more creative we have to get on how to make your offer look better. So I'm going to be hosting classes next month, teaching you guys on my live stream about ways to structure your offer to make your offer look better. And for those of you who don't get a voucher accepted, we're going to sit down and meet with you to make either a short-term game plan that says, how do we qualify today for a home without using Dream for All? Or we're going to make a long-term plan. This is how do we get you best positioned to qualify down the road? Because if you don't qualify today, it's either because you're unwilling to make the monthly payment or you're unable to make the monthly payment. But waiting isn't going to make that easier, because as rates come down, I believe housing prices are going to go up. And so you've got to have a game plan to make sure that you know what it's going to take to become a homeowner. I've shown you the numbers tonight. We've talked through this spreadsheet in helping you to understand how the multiplying effect of being a homeowner and the wealth building you get from owning real estate is literally life-changing. But you have to get on the path. You have to figure out what it's going to take. And for the 90% of you that don't get selected, you can use that as a reason to say, I was never meant to be a homeowner. My parents weren't homeowners. I was never meant to be a homeowner. It's just not ever in the cards for me. Or you can say, hey, this was a great opportunity for me to get started down the path. And I promise you, I'm going to guide you down that path. I'm never going to push you to do something you shouldn't do. But I'll tell you what, in my 24 years of doing this, very few clients have I had that said, gosh, John, I really regret buying a home. There's been a couple. Either it's been a job change, a divorce, a unlucky situation where you bought a home that had a lot of issues. There's been a few. But the truth is, 9 times out of 10, people are saying, I'm so glad that I did it. I'm so glad I did it when I did, because it is so much harder for people today to get into home ownership. Once you're in, then you can walk up the ladder of home ownership. But for some of you, we're not pre-approving you for as much as you want. And you're getting frustrated and you're saying, John, I really, really want to get this higher priced home. How about we take this opportunity and we get in? We get in as quickly as we can so that you can start building equity. You saw in the spreadsheet that I was sharing with you, the compounding effect of building that equity. And so if you can get in using Dream for All, let's do it. If you can't get in using Dream for All, let's look at some house hacks. Let's look at buying multi-family homes. If you haven't heard me say it before, I have a program right now that you can buy a 4-unit property with 0 down payment. You have to pay the closing costs, but it's 5% down, and we have a 5% down payment assistance program. That's right. You can buy a 4-unit property. You live in one, you rent out the other 3. Now, the hardest part about this is this particular program, the maximum loan amount is $766,000. So that's with the 5% down that we loan to you, which means you can't buy a house much bigger than $800,000. Can you find a multi-unit home for under $800,000? Sometimes in some markets. So it is a tight window of opportunity, but I got to tell you, it's a window. And you've got to look for the windows of opportunity. You've got to look for the ways to say, hey, maybe I'm going to buy a house with my sister. Maybe I'm going to go in with my best friend and we're going to buy a house together. It's critical for you to understand that you have to see things as a way to get in the door, a way to get your foot in the door. my kids are talking about getting jobs right now, and we're talking about, hey, you got to get your foot in the door. They're both in high school. Well, 2 older kids are in high school, and it's that time of their lives. They want to get their first job, and you never get your dream job. Even graduating college, you never get your dream job, or most of us don't. And so you've got to figure out, how do I get my foot in the door? And that's what home ownership is about. That's what the path is about. And that's what I'm going to help guide you down that path. All right. So I've covered pretty much everything I want to cover today. My number one goal was to update you on, if you haven't heard about the program, or if you know that you want to do it, but you've been procrastinating. Here's the deal. You need to get started with the pre-approval. If you have not already gotten started, by the way, if you have questions about anything, post it now in chat. It's going to be wrapping up soon. And so if you haven't posted your question, I'm going to put it, or I'll be wrapping up, and you won't have the chance to get me live. But if you are interested, if you think this is something you want to do, one place to start is to download my ebook. Okay. It'll give you a guide, a starting point. It'll walk you through. The chapters are all bookmarked, so you can click on the link and it'll take you directly to the chapter that talks about the things that you are curious about. But it's a guide not just to Dream for All, but general home buying and home ownership. And so check that out if you haven't done so already. But right now, if you have not started the process of getting your pre-approval, this is what you need to be doing. And so click right here. This is how to get started in the buying process. So this QR code takes you to my mobile app, or you can use the link up above, and it will download the mobile app and start the application. You're going to fill out all of your information. You're going to upload your documents to us, and then my team will reach out to schedule an appointment with you and I to go through your approval. That's when we'll get you your Dream for All pre-approval letter, and that's when you can get it uploaded into the voucher, because the deadline is literally 3 weeks from today that you have to be finished. So do not wait until the last minute. All right, gang, that's about it for all that I've got for you tonight. I really appreciate you listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I look forward to taking great care of you and anybody that you feel confident referring me to. Hope you have a wonderful evening. I'll be releasing some videos this week, and then I'll see you again next Monday night for another live stream. Answer your questions, give you an update on what's happening with the voucher process. And until then, have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.